waited a few days to talk about the debate from earlier this week, and context has changed a little bit with Trump being diagnosed with COVID, so obviously sensitive to that. But I think there's some thoughts I've had over the last few days as I think about it that I still wanted to touch on. I guess the three key pieces, three insights, three thoughts related to it. The obvious I won't even address as part of the three, just how bad it was in so many ways, how negative it was for the country. Embarrassing is a word that's thrown around a lot, which I agree with. But taking it a step further than that, the few things that it made me think of. I guess firstly, the immediate reaction after it happened, in a weird way, reminded me not that it was the same, but similar concept to like 9/11 and the day after 9/11, right? People talk about 9/12 a lot and how that was, quote unquote, a good day. And I think they say that because, not totally, but more so than we normally see, we had lots of people in the country come together and feel united and feel like one America versus, Democrat, Republican, or all the different clans and tribes we have. Now, again, that wasn't comprehensive. There was lots of people that still felt left out of that. But I think that same principle held, at least I felt it a bit after the debate. I saw people, I talked to people, I heard people from both sides just agreeing for once and agreeing to say, hey, that was atrocious. That was pitiful. That full stop, right? Who cares who won, nobody won, right? Everybody lost. That was bad. Doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum I sit on, where I sit on social issues. That was just a bad thing. And that's always an interesting thing that happens, right? When something's so bad, and I'm not saying that was as bad as 9/11, but just the idea that when something bad happens, how it brings people together. And I felt that vibe a little bit. The second point, which is a little more depressing, is how quickly I started to see that dissipate within hours, really, but within a couple days, as people went back to their lives, as they went back to their media outlets that they watch, or they went back to their social media feeds and Twitter figures that they follow, all the influence started to come back in, right? So it started as more of an objective view when you were just sitting on your couch watching it or talking to your spouse or whoever and saying, hey, objectively, that was terrible. I hated it for everybody, for the country as a whole. It was just bad, not getting into the politics of it. Once all those other inputs started to come in, it started to become divisive again. It started to become us versus them again. That all seeped back in. And part of that's natural, right? As you watch whatever media outlet you watch, who is more pro-Republican or pro-Democrat, you start to feel like, oh, well, that's true. I didn't think about that. And yeah, maybe Trump wasn't so bad, or maybe Biden did this right, or whatever it is. But also the reverse of that. You start to get that defensiveness again. You start to get, as you hear other people saying something negative about your side, that objective feeling of everything about the debate was bad starts to get replaced by this sense of, well, I have to protect my side a little bit. If they're going to attack me, and it gets back to that balance principle. If they're saying something, well, then I need to say something back. And all of a sudden you move from objective to back to the extremes. So as good as that immediate aftermath was, I see it start to pull back a little bit. But the third point I'll make, which gives me a little bit of optimism again, is related to all of that. What I saw in some of the rhetoric, right? I guess back to that point one, what did bring people together a bit. What I saw in some of the conversation, and I might be giving too much of the benefit of the doubt here. It might be wishful thinking, but I think this is what I saw. Is that in many ways, when people watch that debate, particularly people who have been super ingrained and super dug in on their side, right? Liberal, conservative, whatever it is, just angry and hateful, and I can't believe that other side, and they disgust me, and they're ruining America, right? That whole rhetoric, that whole sentiment. What I think happened a little bit was when they watched the debate, it was almost as if a mirror was held up in front of their face, and they started to look and think, is that what I look like? Is that what we look like in everyday life? When we're on Facebook, or when we're talking to friends and family, or when we're having conversations at work, wherever it is, right? All these different interactions, the way that I'm handling politics, the way that I'm handling interacting with the other side, is that what it looks like? Do I look that embarrassing, that childish, that petty? Is that right? And I think, maybe on some small scale for some people, maybe not at all for others, but maybe on a bigger scale for some others, that came in and they started to think about that. And you can't hide from that, right? All the stuff I talked about in point two, stuff starts to seep in, you get defensive, you start to go back to your team. But I don't think that goes away fully. I think that visual, that experience of watching it play out in the worst possible way, in many ways, you can't hide from that. It does force you to step back and think, is that how I'm acting? And if it is, and I just said that was one of the most embarrassing, pitiful things I've ever seen, what does that say about me and the way that I'm treating this situation? Maybe I need to be better.